objective. We're going to look at, we should be able to explain the computer environment, which is very cardinal. All right. What do we mean by computer environment? Apart from the microprocessor, which is one of the major components of a computer system and responsible for basically processing data, what are other components that that the computer system utilizes, and the environment itself? How does it make sure that it coordinates these components? All right. And then we should also get to know how to use a mouse. Though some of these we'll do them practically when we come for residentials, but you also do practice some of these things, because basically right now you're joined in using different gadgets, and some of you are using laptops, and for you to access whatever you're accessing is because of this input device known as a mouse. So you basically know how to use the left and the right click of a mouse and the scroll bar, but we'll try to propound further on how a mouse can also be used to effect. And then also we should be able to identify and explain keyboard entries. Very important, very important. As we go out, as we go further into computer usage, you'll find out that certain keys here, there are certain keys you would bear with me and agree with me to say there are certain keys on the computer system that we don't even use. We just observe and see what do they do, but we have to understand them, all right, because they can help us provide some shortcuts and also see how we can utilize them best to the effect of the machine. And then also we should be able to understand switching a computer on and self-returning it off. What are some of the practices? So this is a culture. What is a professional way of doing switching on and switching off a computer system, all right? And then starting a program on a computer system. Yeah, in as much as it may seem simple, there are others of us who do not really know, and others that we may encounter that do not really know how to start up programs in a computer system. And basically also, we're going to also, within the unit, understand how to manage files and save files. Surprising, file management is quite cardinal in an organization, all right? File management is quite cardinal in an organization. So we need to know how to organize files in a computer system electronically. How do we organize them? And how are they going to help us in our day-to-day activity, okay? By virtue of doing that, how is that data going to help us, all right? So let's then look at something known as a mouse, all right? Let's then look at something known as a mouse. Now, a computer system environment is basically made up of input and output devices, all right? Input and output devices. Now, for input devices specifically, these are devices that are continuously used in a computer system to help, all right? To help input instructions in a computer system, because we all know that the computer system itself does not work without any instruction. So then there are two major input device or components that we usually use in our computer system, and that is something known as a mouse and the keyboard, all right? A mouse and the keyboard. So in this lesson, we're going to concentrate on something known as a mouse. Okay, some may also mention it to say mouse, okay, or mouse. So depending on how we pronounce it, it's still a very vital component, all right, that has to be used in a computer system to basically insert instruction in that device, all right? So then let's cover it further. So let me just retrieve a PPT, and then we see what we can discuss under that, all right? So then we are saying a mouse is one of the cardinal input device in a computer system. Now, basically, we are saying all modern computers have varieties of these particular components. And these particular components allow users to select objects, all right? They allow users, which is you and me, to select objects on a computer system, basically for navigation purposes, all right? And what a mouse does is that the pointer, by selection of object, moves from one position to another within a computer system. Basically, right now, I'm actually moving my mouse to and from, all right, my computer system, and it's able to navigate me from this position to another, and then click on something, and then manipulate how that particular something will behave towards what I want it to do, all right? And then the other thing is that we have to also understand that there are different types of mouses, all right? And mechanically, this mouse or something known as mechanical mouse usually has a rubber ball, okay? That determines the direction and speed of the pointer, all right? Now, this particular pointer in a computer system or that moves by virtue of you moving a mouse is something known as a cursor, all right? Something known as a cursor, all right? Now, the direction and speed of a cursor in a mechanical mouse are controlled by a rubber ball. Now, I know some of us right now, I've never used a mechanical mouse before, and some of us have used a mechanical mouse before. Normally, if you find in the industry nowadays, you find that they are no longer these so-called mechanical mouses because they have been phased out because of the technology and its hecticness in terms of reliability. All right, and also durability of this particular gadget. Okay. Now, the reason being as to why mechanical mouses have been phased out is this, because the ball of 10 required cleaning. Okay, there was an issue of you cleaning the ball most of the time. Now, what is that ball? The round thing that used to be at the bottom. We're going to see a pictorial later on of this mechanical mouse and how it used to look like. All right. And then the other type of mouse that is there is something known as optical mouse. Now, this is something frequently used by most of us as end users of today. We usually use something known as an optical mouse. Now, the main reason why it's not optical, because it uses light, all right? It uses light for it to move that so-called pointer or cursor to and from within the computer system, all right? So what happens is that the light shown onto the mouse pad is what is referred to as an optical light, all right? So all it uses now within itself is something referred to as a refraction. So it uses a method known as refraction that determines, okay? It determines the speed and direction of the cursor to and from the gadget itself. Now, it requires little maintenance generally. So this is why optical mouse have been preferred to mechanical mouse, because there is little maintenance that is needed for this particular type of mouse to continue working effectively. Now, interacting with the mouse, it simply means that you have to undertake certain actions, okay? And normally, for you to interact with a mouse generally well, it's because you're trying to invoke a certain action within a computer system and basically affect the cursor to move to and from one object to another. Now, what we are referring to as an object in this case are basically those icons, your application icons, are what we are referring to as objects, okay? So some of these actions that we're talking about are clicking. So you can click on an object, okay? By virtue of you clicking on an object, whether it's once or twice, it simply means you're basically selecting or opening that particular object, all right? Now, the other action that is undertaken apart from selecting is something known as clicking and holding. Now, if probably you're trying to move one object from one position to another, probably from the left to the right, now you have to hold that object. Now, we have to assume this in form of our hands. We're trying to hold something in our hands. So our hands hold firm this object, And for it to move from one position to another, we have to apply some certain force, isn't it? So then if we have just selected an object with a mouse, then it cannot move. So what we're trying to do is to create some form of action as if our hands are basically holding an actual object. So for us to do that, we have to click on the mouse and then hold the click button that we have done. That will pin to the object and then drag it forth, all right? Now we'll see this in practical terms, all right? And because the mouse itself is divided into uh, um, um, uh, two sides. It has the left and the right side, all right? So which of these are we holding? Is it on the left or right? So we'll determine that later on. After you have held and moved your object, what you're trying to do is to push it somewhere and let it sit somewhere, all right? And that is what we call the releasing of the object or dropping of that particular object. So the click that you are holding in this time now, if you want to release it, you're going to remove your finger from that particular left or right position of your mouse to release the object or drop the object, all right? Now, as I was saying from the two sides, one of the sides that we're going to look at is something known as the right. So under the right clicking or the right side of it, when you right click an object, what you are basically doing is that you're activating, all right? You're activating a shortcut of actions, all right? A shortcut of actions or menus, all right? If you can try that on your mouse right now, you find that when you right click on anything, all right, from the right click position of your mouse, try to right click there, you find that it will give you different options. There's a dialog box that will come with give you different shortcuts or menu activities that you can conduct on an object that you are right clicking on, all right? If you do it on your desktop, you find that you can change the grid of position or view of your object on the desktop. You can change the size of your object on the desktop. You can basically copy a specific object from one position to another. You can cut that particular position. So you can do a number of things. Now, those things that we're mentioning are basically what we are referring to as actions or activities, okay? Now, modern mouse, what do? They also include something known as a scroll wheel, all right? So on modern mouse nowadays, there's no need for you to drag an object, for instance, by far, or to move or scroll within a folder. You can use what we call a scroll wheel to do that, all right? So that is also another option. Apart from the left and the right side, we have something referred to as a scroll wheel. So benefits. What are benefits of this? So cursor positioning is fast in an optic mouse. The other thing is that manual interaction or activity interaction is very easy in an optical mouse. And then the other thing is that users can draw electronically using these particular gadgets, all right? You can draw electronically. What do we mean when drawing? We mean you can sketch things without using your touch screens, without using your pencils to do that, all right? So you can basically do that with these particular gadgets, all right? Very important, is it? So now that we understand the function of mouses and basically other things, next we're going to come and meet to discuss something known as mouse button configurations, all right? How do they work? And basically look at some pictorials on how these particular devices work. Very important, in as much as they may seem simple, but very helpful as well.